We'll recap the Hornets weekend, the new look Hornets that saw Mark Williams get his first start, and we'll also recap Mitch Kupchak's comments on the deadline, all today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. I'm Walker Mail. Check me out on WFNZ 92.7 FM from 12 to 3. And that's Doug Branson. Find his Substack, Every Hornets Boxscore, on everyhornetsboxscore.com. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, by the way. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, weird season now. We're in freaky season with the Charlotte Hornets. No Jalen McDaniels. You don't have him anymore. You don't have Mason Plumlee. You're seeing Mark Williams get his first start. Bryce McGowens is back in the rotation. And Steve Clifford is telling you that they didn't even prepare for Nikola Jokic, and Mitch Kupchak believes in Gordon Hayward's health next year. And, man, we got a lot to decipher on this here podcast. Let's start and break it down with talking about the first-round pick from this past NBA draft and his first start in the NBA against some monster teams in the association is what Mark just had to go through this weekend along with this Hornet squad. And, Doug, I thought against Boston, pretty damn good start. Liked what I saw out there. And the clip, and I think Richie Randall put this out there on Twitter, but it was the clip of Mark actually going out there on the perimeter and doing just a fantastic job defensively on Jason Tatum, who is going to be in the MVP conversation. Not only that, but you got 12 rebounds from Mark in this game, played 31 minutes, so you got an extended look at him, close to 60%, 4 of 7 shooting, got a double-double, 2 assists, 1 block. What did you make of Mark Williams' night?
Yeah, I think he makes guys think out there, whether it's the player that he's going up against one-on-one, the center position, and, you know, especially in that Denver game, he got a pretty great matchup in Jokic to go up against, and it's going to be different for Mark and Bryce McGowens, who we'll talk about in a moment. They're in different situations now. They're going to be facing much stiffer competition because their place in the rotation has, increased. So I thought they both looked comfortable in that game against Boston. I think, Mark Williams especially, I think he makes you think if you're the guard that he's dropping down to drive against. I saw multiple opportunities for guards to take it all the way to the rim. They would have against Mason Plumlee. They are not doing that against Mark Williams. I think his issues in the Boston game, it was about pick and roll defense and the decisions. I was watching the broadcast on ESPN and Clifford was mic'd up, and Clifford's telling him, "Hey, you got to get to the level of the screen." On those situations where they're not dropping back, where they are hedging, where they want to be more aggressive on the screen, you can see that he's a little bit afraid. Mark's a little bit afraid to go all the way up and then try to recover back. And if you don't get all the way up, especially against a great shooting team like Boston, they're going to take advantage. And boy, did Boston take advantage. They hit about 1,000 three-point shots. Not all of those were on Mark Williams, but there are some things that are obvious that he's going to learn through this process about in terms of pick and roll defense, in terms of fouling. He had huge foul issues against Denver. It kept him out for a large majority of the game because Jokic is a monster and MVP. But my big takeaway is that Mark belongs, and I'm glad that he's starting, and I'm glad that he's developing a relationship. It's not all the way there yet. It's probably not going to get all the way there yet, even this season, but it's starting to develop with LaMelo Ball, who's looking for him in that pick and roll situation.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. LaMelo Ball in this game against Denver, so I was kind of focusing on the Boston game, but against Denver, you're right. Mark only played 21 minutes compared to the 31 that he played previously, so that opened the door for Nick Richards to come in with no Mason Plumlee on the roster. We did not see Kai Jones in this game, so Kai Jones.
He was injured. He was a late scratch. Right. It was weird because they brought him up and then said that he had a left ankle sprain, so I don't know if he sustained that in practice or if they found it, but anyway, but he had a great sweater on. It was like a heart. It looked like a playing card, but it was like a heart above an ace. Just a really tight sweater game.
Well, there you go. And that's all you really can ask from Kai Jones right now with the boot on. But yeah, so no Kai, right? Just in case anybody was looking at the box score, catching up, trying to see, hey, is there going to be any room for him? He's injured right now. We'll see if when he's ready to go that he's actually a big guy, a part of that rotation too. But yeah, you're right. Mark Williams against Nikola Jokic, fouled and only played 21 minutes because of it, despite getting the start. I thought there was some resistance for Nikola Jokic on some shots here, Doug. The first bucket that he scored, it was like Mark, just his timing was all wrong. And Jokic is a master at getting your timing off from a defender. And I think it showcased it on that first bucket. And there were a couple of times where he had the goaltending against Jokic too. And so again, that's kind of like a timing thing. Maybe I thought it was against Jokic. So yeah, there were a couple of things there. Nothing. Oh my God, I didn't think Mark just got torched like Nick Richards did, right? Like, no, yeah. At least, I just thought there was a difference. Clearly, Mark was not stopping Nikola Jokic, who is, but at the same time, Mark's not. Yeah, I thought we saw a big old gap between these two centers who played in Nick Richards and Mark Williams.
Oh yeah, and the gap was I think the gap was first half, second half, because first half, Mark Williams, and I thought especially in that first quarter, was just amped up. He was, you're right. The timing is not there. All the details aren't there. But he was harassing Jokic. He was not backing down. It was not the same Mark Williams that we saw in preseason getting shoved around constantly and looking reticent to do anything. Like, he's grown up, and he's grown up very quickly, and he's gotten a lot better very quickly. And he was dueling with Jokic. He was influencing shots. He did get a block against Jokic in that first quarter, but he got into foul trouble. And look, to Denver's credit, they understood where the matchup was for them. Jokic versus a couple of, rookie center and a center that hasn't gotten a lot of play time, and they spammed Jokic. Jokic had the ball in his hands a vast majority of this game, and he only, he didn't have a great shooting night, but he was passing, he was doing all of the Jokic things that makes him the MVP. But Mark in the second half, because he had gotten that foul trouble, you could see some of that aggressiveness fade away because he was afraid of getting that foul. And again, rookie, he's going to learn from it. Nick Richards, on the other hand, was just getting back cut to death over and over and over again, especially in that fourth quarter. And after the game, Steve Clifford talks about how they didn't put enough in, they didn't install enough to deal with Jokic, to deal with that level of Jokic. And so I guess, and you could see that. There were a lot of one-on-one opportunities for Nick Richards and for Mark Williams, and Jokic took advantage of that. But at the same time, I think it was a good experience for both guys. But yeah, Mark looked way better than Nick for sure.
Yeah. And so we'll see. I don't know how much time Nick Richards is going to get while Mark Williams is healthy, trying to go back to this Boston box score, because against Denver, we saw Nick get more minutes, but against Boston, Nick got 17 compared to Mark's 31. And so that's probably what you expect going forward. But yeah, it's Steve Clifford does like Nick Richards. Like he's talked about that. At least he said that to us, that he, even when Mason was on the team, he wanted to find some time to put Nick Richards in the game. And the last couple of opportunities for him had come on the second night of back-to-backs. And so, Steve at least has been vocal about backing up Nick Richards.
Yeah, and the problem for Nick Richards is that he's still going up. You can give an excuse to Mark that he's adjusting to playing the first string offense, that he's defending against that. Nick is still playing the second string. Like DeAndre Jordan dunked about 100 times at the beginning of that. Can I just have a second to read my fourth quarter notes that I have? The first 5 that I have from everyhornetsboxscore.com. If you want the full game rundown, go check it out. So 10-16, Nick Richards offensive foul. Little questionable. I don't know if it was totally an offensive foul, but they called it. 9:58, Nick Richards commits the goaltend. 9:37, Nick comes over to help Ish, jumps, bites on an Ish layup for some reason. I don't know. We'll never know. Takes himself way out of the play. Ish easily kicks it back out to DeAndre Jordan, who dunks at timeout Hornets. 8 minutes. I legitimately, at 8 minutes, go look at the film. I have no idea what Nick Richards is doing and why he's doing it. He followed Ish to double Ish to trap him. Again, we're talking about Ish Smith here. Hornets legend, but, I don't know why he doubled him. Tries to recover back, goes for the steal. Jordan wide open for a dunk. Another dunk. And if you look at Steve Clifford, and I put the clip that Hornets lead on Twitter, Clifford just throws his arm in disgust. It's like I'm telling you, I'm worried about Steve Clifford. I'm worried about his health. I'm worried that he's gonna rip a rotator cuff. Like, I don't know what's going on there. I thought he was trying to throw himself out of the game, honestly. And then finally, 7:36, I wrote this. Nick Richards may secretly be hoping that DeAndre Jordan gets tired from all of the dunking. A rope-a-dunk, if you will. I think he was trying a rope-a-dunk strategy. Let's let DeAndre Jordan dunk it so many times that he runs out of breath in the mile high, and then I can start to go to work. Like, it was just crazy. It was crazy what I was watching at the beginning of that fourth quarter.
After 24 points, he'll get tired, and then that's where I really come in and shine, baby. That's what Nick Richards was thinking. All right, let's get to some of the quotes from Mitch Kupchak after his press availability. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Not only will we talk about Mitch's comment on the veteran free agents, but Michael Scotto has an interesting report out there on Miles Bridges. We'll get to that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, the values, and the experiences to help you achieve your goals. You can identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. Again, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. More Locked On Hornets coming up next.
Is Locked On Hornets.
But I have seen him go all the way up to number 10. That was. Is there a warning? Do we need to get out of here?
Okay, here's the thing. I don't know if you heard, but my watch went off, and I was trying to silence it, and then I accidentally hit ping the phone, and then the phone pinged, and now here we are. I'm doing my best, man.
It seems like you're doing your very worst.
Well, sometimes
it seems like I'm actively fighting you today to move.
Sometimes my best is my worst.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Doug, we got to hear from Mitch Kupchak. And in the last episode, I apologize because at the time that we did the last episode, I believe that was Friday morning, I said that Mitch Kupchak was not going to speak because that was the report. And then the Hornets put out there, I believe, an hour before he was set to speak. So I think 10:45 is when he answered questions from media. And I think they put it out there like 9:30, 9:45, something like that. So eventually, as soon as we got done, that's when it was announced that he would speak. So anyway.
Yeah, but I think here's my theory. They listened to our show. That's what I think. I think they listened to our show and they said, all right, we got to say something.
As soon as we posted it, they released that information. And I think that's because Michael Jordan listens to our show. And then he told everybody, listen, Mitch, you got to speak. I don't care if you're in Paris, which, by the way, he confirmed. I don't care if you're in Paris. You got to speak. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. I wanted to get to one quote and then talk about Miles specifically because Mitch Kupchak said this, Doug. Mm-hmm. We hope to bring back some of our veteran free agents, if not all of them. Okay. So troubling comment there based off of different levels, however you want to think about it. Because if you're just talking about the veteran free agents they have, Kelly Oubre, Dennis Smith Jr., Nick Richards, PJ Washington. But the one I want to focus on right now is Miles Bridges, too. Now, he did answer a question about Miles Bridges, and he said, look, I can't talk about it. Miles pleaded, this is quote, Miles pleaded in October, the NBA is conducting an investigation. When the investigation ends, we will have more information and go from there. Well, we got a report from Michael Scotto over the weekend, and Scotto put out there that the Hornets are prioritizing retaining Miles Bridges. That's the quote. Mm-hmm. So a lot to unpack. If we focus on Miles for the moment here, Doug, what do you make of Mitch Kupchak's comments as it pertains to possibly Miles Bridges and then Scotto's report on Miles as well?
Well, I'm just not surprised. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for, I think, ever since we started our trade deadline coverage, that we have to really contextualize whatever they were going to do or not going to do with the thing that we can't talk about, that they won't talk about, that nobody's talking about, and that's Miles Bridges being a restricted free agent and the investigation that's ongoing. And I would not be surprised if they do retain him in some way, unless the NBA were to come out and say, we've done our investigation and we never want Miles Bridges to step on the court again. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's what's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's a universe where the NBA says this is so serious and we're going to slap a 2 or 3 year ban, and then the Hornets go, well, that's not worth, exploring. But if it's some punishment that you and I have discussed, some length of punishment relative to what we've seen in the past, then I think the Hornets as an organization are going to see this. However gross you feel this is, or I think there's a lot of people out there that don't think this is gross at all, but they think they found a little bit of a glitch in the matrix where they can retain a quality player for less than they were going to have to spend before all of this happened. Plus, they get to be bad enough to compete for one of the top spots in the draft, and all of a sudden the team's outlook looks a lot better than it did even before all of this stuff happened with Miles Bridges. So I think they're seeing this as an opportunity, and they're going to pursue it as such.
Yeah, so the Hornets have played 58 games already this season. You do not have that much left here. You're going to get the All-Star break, which is now, really 2/3 of the way through any NBA year anymore. And after that, it's, a home stretch for Tankathon and Tank City between Charlotte, Houston, San Antonio, and Detroit. I don't expect an investigation. I don't expect it to be completed anytime. I mean, maybe, I don't know, right? I don't know when it's going to be completed. But I know that Miles Bridges is certainly not coming back this year. That's not news to anybody. Now the question is, how much of next year does he miss? And is this thing going to be punished enough to the point where he actually misses some part of the season after that? And so as we're talking about, you mentioned finding a glitch in the system, which is, it's gross, right? Look, we might be saying it a lot. It's important for that caveat to be here. We understand how gross it is, but this is how possibly these teams might operate. It's the fact that because he was arrested for felony domestic violence, that Miles Bridges will now not get close to $30 million annually, which is what he was set to get. And depending on how much time he misses, that is what is going to decrease his value here too. Because the Charlotte Hornets are not the only gross organization that are looking to capitalize off this, right? It would be the Lakers looking to try to give LeBron a championship and say, hey, let's get another talented player. Let's see if you can hold on for when Miles Bridges' investigation is completed and so is his suspension. And there are going to be other teams. So the point being, if there are other teams interested in Miles, that might drive the price up as well. And if that is the case, then how much money are you saving? It's a lot, but maybe it's not as much as you thought in the first place, because after all, teams are going to be coming in because they want to take part in the bargain, quote unquote, that they'll feel the Miles Bridges situation is.
Yeah, and I think we need to get some clarity on when the restricted part of the free agency drops and it becomes an unrestricted free agent situation. But I haven't seen anyone talking about this as if the Hornets aren't going to be in the driver's seat in these discussions, as if they won't have an opportunity to match another team. And this everything that you hear from Mitch Kupchak specifically indicates that they are looking for these types of advantages that they have over the teams that you just mentioned, because they don't feel like free agency is an advantage for them. And so they're not going to be active. They don't feel like the trade deadline is an advantage for them. In fact, I have to read this quote verbatim because it's just too juicy. This is from Mitch Kupchak's availability. I wrote 4 quotes from Mitch Kupchak's post-trade deadline availability that took some amount of time off my life. If you want to read that for free, you can go to everyhornetsboxscore.com. But the final one really took the cake. And he said, the trade deadline is something you don't spend a lot of time on, and then an hour before the deadline, you have to make decisions and decide what you want to do.
Doug, I made the comparison. No, I'm sorry. I made the comparison that the NBA and the Charlotte Hornets are the kids in high school that don't study for the test until way late, and then eventually they get a C. And I joked about that, but it's true. The Hornets, based off of that quote, they didn't study, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, let's just do this, and they pretty much got a C minus, however you feel they got.
Yeah, I mean, you contrast that with the Phoenix Suns, who managed, they've been working for several seasons to get Kevin Durant. And now it looks like they're probably going to get Kyrie. Like, this is all stuff that they've been working on for a long time behind the scenes.
That's right.
In a real, all this stuff, is not above board, and everybody knows it. And there was one criticism of Mitch coming out of LA is that he liked to do everything above board and wasn't participating in any of these shenanigans that everyone else was participating in. But you get quotes like this and you go, okay, so they're not taking the trade deadline very seriously. That's obvious. They're not taking free agency very seriously. That's obvious because they keep telling us that. And so where do they look for advantages? And obviously they're looking for advantages of players that they're in the driver's seat to sign, that they can develop in their system and sell them on staying in Charlotte. And that's what they're going to do. And I don't think that's a very smart strategy, but that's the strategy. Look, Walker, one day you and I are going to be doing this show as old men sitting in rocking chairs. I don't think that MJ is going to own this team forever. I certainly don't think Mitch Kupchak's going to be GM forever. And I think you and I are going to be doing this show one day and smiling because there are people that have their hands on the wheel that, one, want to spend the money aggressively enough to actually go out and compete, and two, don't sacrifice two very important areas of roster building that every other team in the NBA takes advantage of, regardless small, medium, or large size market. That's free agency and trading. That the Hornets have abandoned those two areas, I think I use this word a lot. I think it's malpractice. It is total malpractice. It is franchise building malpractice. And it's a shame. And I don't know what to tell people who have season tickets who want to go to these games and have hope. I don't know what to tell you other than hold on.
A little LaMelo's fun.
Victor might come. Hold on. Pray to the lottery gods. That's all I can tell you.
I do it every night before I go to sleep to see Wemby in a Charlotte Hornet uniform. I don't know about you, but I know I certainly do. Let's talk a little bit more about Mitch Kupchak's press conference comments coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
I want to dive a little bit more into that free agent conversation that we were having with Mitch Kupchak's comments, what he had to say about Gordon Hayward. And he did tell us he was in Paris. What does that mean? We'll get to that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you are a new member of FanDuel and you sign up today. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Again, the no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. It's excellent with our new partner in FanDuel. All you have to do is just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, it's super easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets.
This is Locked On Hornets.
This amazing photo of Mitch Kupchak standing next to Steve Clifford in what looks like I think if you typed into one of those AI image generators, shotgun wedding, this is the picture that would come up, because Steve Clifford looks absolutely
so good.
Shocked.
There's not a background, underrated part of this. It's just a blank white screen, so you're not having any Hornets graphics. You don't even have the courtesy to bring in
blank white faces, too. Blank white faces.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I'm sorry, Doug. I'm a little low energy today. Plus, it's like the Hornets are doom and gloom right now. That's the feeling. Can you please start off this last segment with something positive? Feed me something positive, please.
Well, I can't. I will tell you where to go if you want something positive, and that's go to the Denver Nuggets box score on NBA.com, where you can click on the different elements to look at video, and just go check out the assists for LaMelo Ball in this game. It was a tough shooting night against the Nuggets for LaMelo and Terry. A lot of the offense was coming from PJ, and Gordon Hayward had a surprisingly aggressive and really awesome first half, completely disappeared in the second half, whatever. But go look at his assist. He was throwing some physics-breaking passes in this game. And then I want you, after that, to go find, this would have been a foul situation. I believe it was DeAndre Jordan fouling P.J. Washington. But LaMelo had he turned around and threw it behind his head, really not even looking at where PJ was, and zipped it right into PJ on target. It's, I will go to YouTube sometimes and pull up like Larry Bird passing, or KG. Like KG was an amazing passer, especially early on. And they would throw these passes that I'd be like, wow, how do they, what? Huh? That was what this pass was. And it's a shame that it happens in a Nuggets game where they had just zero shot of winning. But if you want to feel better about the Hornets situation long-term, go look at those assists because LaMelo was dealing.
That's what helps you. Well, and offensively, they got off to a great start. They were hitting a ton of shots. LaMelo was helping out. That three that he hit early where he's just kind of dribbling around, la-di-da. All right, I'll just go ahead and pull this up from the corner. Splash zone. That was fantastic. Splash. And Gordon Hayward, you're right. It was a good first half for him. Let's speak a little bit more about Gordon. Because, Doug, this is one comment that I wasn't exactly thrilled to hear from Mitch Kupchak. And it was about the trade of Jalen McDaniels. And I promise I'm putting this to the side, right? It has nothing to do with, I think, them not liking the trade for Jalen, right? It's not the worst thing that they've ever done. It contributes to what I think is a track record of bad business decision that this Hornets team has made, right? But at the end of the day, in a vacuum, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm just tired of seeing all of those things stack up. With Gordon Hayward, this is a comment that leaves me a little scared in the fact that he says Gordon Hayward, we're hoping, is not going to be as injured as he was this year, and he'll be out there on the floor, and that won't allow Jalen McDaniels to start a 15 or 20 game sample size that he gave you this season. Okay, again, separating the Jalen McDaniels part. Huh? Gordon Hayward? What? You think he's not? You think he's going to be healthy next year? Why? It's baffling, Doug. Like, how am I supposed to defend that? Because Gordon Hayward was injured often before he signed with Charlotte, and I know it was the big injury that he had where his ankle does a 180-degree turn. That's the gross one, right? I get it. But he had some kind of injury history since he's been in Charlotte. He has had an injury history here in just this tenure. And then you're expecting, or you're hoping, right, that next year Gordon Hayward is not as injured. Here's the problem. Let's say he's not. We have to also understand this dude is getting worse every second of his basketball life. That's where he is in his career right now. Every single second. Because this is someone that is, 33 now? And he certainly will be at the beginning of next season, already with a damaged body. And, Doug, I think he's a helpful basketball player. I think he's helpful. He is not the same type of impact player that he was even last year when he was on the court. I mean, right? Like, he wasn't last year. It was pretty clear. Okay, yeah, Gordon is still very, very good. This year, I think he's probably just good when he's on the court and not nearly as impactful. But man, I know I'm with you. I'm
pulling up the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm pulling up the numbers.
Right.
So like his usage percentage on the air, these are all cleaning the glass numbers that, you know the deal. It takes away garbage time minutes and all that good stuff. So usage percentage, pretty much the same. Now they classified him as a wing last season, and they're classifying him as a forward. So it might have an impact on some of the ways that you look at these percentiles. Because these percentiles are based on what they classify him as. But among forwards in the NBA this season, his points per shot attempt, 107.5. That's 28th percentile versus last season. And really, even if you look at the first season when he was classified as a forward, it was above average, his points per shot attempt. And so his points per shot attempt has gone way down. His three-point shooting has gone down. His assist percentage is where it was. He's still a connector. He still moves the basketball well. I'm sure he's still helpful. He still has some impact on the defensive end versus, an average average forward. But I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Mitch Kupchak's faith in Gordon Hayward's health status is like biblical level. It's Job level. Like the sheep are all dead. The house is burnt down. But still, I have faith, or Kupchak has faith in Gordon Hayward that it's all going to turn out well. And I agree. Even if it does, I guess you're left with a contract that you can move. But I don't think even if he stayed healthy until the trade deadline this coming season, yeah, you're right. Like another organization is going to take a look at it and going, what Gordon Hayward are we going to get? We don't know. It's a crapshoot.
His points per game has gone down every single year. His field goal percentage has gone down every single year he's been with Charlotte. The 3-point percentage, it's gone down every single year. The amount of games are the same, 44 in 2020, 49 games played in 2021, 2022, 32 games having already played that many so far, and you have like 20. I mean, it's going to be crazy. He might actually play more than he ever has this year if he can just stay healthy long enough. But I just don't
and
get
you're
it.
Not you're not getting any intangibles either, right? I mean, would this be a different story if we're talking about Gordon Hayward, locker room leader, Gordon Hayward keeping the team together, Gordon Hayward mentor to whatever? Yeah, I mean, I think this would be totally different. But we're not talking. Gordon Hayward is a contract for hire kind of guy. He comes into your organization, he's gonna give you everything he's got, but that's it. Like he's not gonna stay after. He's not gonna do all these like sort of intangible things. And I think that matters if you're looking to compete in the playoffs at some point. I'm looking at these on-off numbers too. The Hornets are 2 points worse offensively this season with him on the floor versus off. Defensively, he does have an impact. Like they're almost 7 points better defensively when he's on the floor. But is that enough to jettison a young player like Jalen McDaniels, who you may or may not have been able to retain? I think that's a big question mark. I think a lot of people look at this and go, the Hornets gave up on Jalen McDaniels because they felt like, hey, we're going to re-sign Miles. We're going to keep Gordon. Gordon's going to be healthy. We're not going to have enough minutes for Jalen. I think a lot of other people go, wait a minute, did you just not want to spend enough to retain Jalen? Or do you really think that Jalen was going to want a bigger role somewhere else and was going to move on? Because he was an unrestricted free agent. It's not the same situation as Miles where they have the restricted, element of it. So tough call. I haven't seen enough from Jalen this year where I'm like, wow, impact player must keep. So I was, I'm surprised that they could only get 1 second round pick for him. That's what surprises me most when teams were seemingly willing to really deal multiple second round picks for players of his same ilk.
Yeah, and so even independent of that, again, it's the Gordon faith, as you mentioned. But you're right. Like, I understand why people would be frustrated. I myself am a little frustrated with it. And so just to look at a couple of these other veteran free agents that he's talking about here, Doug, DSJ, whatever. We'll see what happens with him, right? I mean,
he did hit a three. He hit a three. He hit a three. It happened. He did it. Oh, man.
It's happening
beautiful.
at a more frequent pace, which is once. PJ, Nick, we've talked a lot about PJ. We'll see. Mitch Kupchak did say that the McDaniels trade did have something to do with their ability to bring back PJ Washington. So that's going to be a priority this season, this offseason. Mitch Kupchak has talked about that. I think that's where he's steering us. But Kelly Oubre is the one I want to talk about here, because Kelly also is on an expiring contract. And so if Mitch Kupchak says the hope is to possibly bring back every one of their veteran free agents, man, you want to talk about some cleaning the glass off numbers, I should say. Like defensively, Doug, this is what Kelly's whole career has been. They're not good. When he's on the court for the Charlotte Hornets, they are worse defensively. When he's off the floor, they're better. Same thing as far as allowing effective field goal percentage. I know he was, deflecting passes, but at the same time, it's not like I've ever watched Kelly. I mean, he was last year one of the worst defenders in all of the NBA, and the assist percentage for Kelly is actually like hilarious. It's actually comedic. I usually see a 1 or a 99 to indicate the lowest or the highest percentile for Kelly. I mean, he's got some zeros in there for assist percentage in his career. Like the dude, that's what he is.
Pass.
So anyway,
that's not a shock to anyone who's watched him for any period of time. Yeah, he doesn't pass. But teams don't typically ask him to pass. That's not really what. I mean, sure, you'd like it every once in a while. You like him to make good decisions, especially in transition.
No, you're right.
That's where I'm most frustrated with him in terms of pass. It's not like when he gets the ball in the half court, if he's open, I want him to shoot it. But in transition, sometimes he gets a little too sort of blinders on, doesn't make the right pass, doesn't make the right play. But that's, to me, like that's not enough of a knock on him as a player. As long as he's shooting well, that's the thing.
But he's not. That's it,
fine.
Right? Like he's in the 20th percentile.
But do you really believe Mitch Kupchak when he says that. Like, I don't know that I think that's a signal that they're going to retain a number of players on this roster. But I don't really believe him when he says they're going to go after every single free agent that they have.
Honestly, Doug, yes, I do believe him. And you know why? Because Mitch doesn't lie at these things. He's quite bad at it. Like, Mitch doesn't lie about this sort of stuff. He tells you what he's thinking.
I'm not accusing him of being a liar. I'm not accusing him of being a liar. I'm just saying, sometimes you go out. Look, I do this all the time. Sometimes I come on the show, I say all kinds of things. Sometimes you just get on a roll and you just start saying stuff, and so I think when he goes back and things change, right? Like the draft is going to be a big deal if they get the first pick, or really if they get the second pick, because then you add Scoot in there, another sort of wing player. If they get Victor, that's a little bit of a different story. But, things are going to change. This is a fluid situation. And I still sit here, even after Mitch said that, I still sit here and think that Kelly Oubre is not going to be a Charlotte Hornet next season.
Yeah, so we'll see. But I do believe him. The last thing, I am glad about this. Mitch Kupchak was out scouting, and I think it was Scott Fowler who asked Mitch, can you confirm whether you're scouting Victor Wembanyama or not? And Mitch said, no, I cannot confirm that. But I will tell you that I'm in Paris right now, and I am sitting in my hotel room here. And so he was trying to confirm that he was watching Victor Wembanyama.
I need someone to explain to me why he can't confirm that. Is it a rule? It can't be tampering. There's no.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And Victor, it's a different situation. Like, I guess you wouldn't want to let another team know if you were interested in somebody who was projected around the 6th or 7th pick. You don't want to tip your hand there when we get closer to draft time. But everybody knows that Victor's going number 1. So I don't.
Right.
I don't.
We really like Scoot. I'm thinking about this Scoot guy for number 1 overall. Yeah. I guess, and also, the Magic held on to their cards with this past number 1 overall pick. Teams are still.
But that was a different situation. It was up in the air. There was not a consensus number 1 pick.
Oh, no, you're right. My point being, even so, Orlando gets to do whatever they want. It's not like anybody can trade up above them, right? That's my point. But also, yes, totally. This is a different situation with Victor. And the other thing is, my next question, just real quickly, do we have to scout him? I guess you have to go meet him. You definitely have to scout him.
Yeah,
a lot of this is joking. You got to go say what's up to him, and I completely understand that. But it is funny, how much do you need to scout the generational top? Are you going to go draft day on me with Kevin Costner and ask why the number 1 overall quarterback didn't have anybody come to his birthday? Why didn't anybody go to his birthday party? What's going on here? And then you just take the running back 5th overall. What's going on?
No, I think it is. I think you're right. I think it's less about looking at his game and more about relationship building, because you don't want to be in a situation where you get the number 1 overall pick and then a guy says, well, I don't have any relationship with that team. I don't want to play for that team. And then you get a whole nother, that would be a disaster, debacle of epic proportions. I wouldn't, I'm not going to put anything past this franchise at this point, but it's good. It's good that he's out there. It's good that he's scouting, because really it's clear the draft is all we have. That's where the hope lies. So I'm glad that he's out there, getting his hands dirty.
And he looked
eating
good.
Croissants.
Wemby looked good, man. Because he looks good every game, but he looked good this most recent time out. I don't know if you saw the highlights, but they were excellent. I really want him to be in a Hornets uniform. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen today. Make your second listen game to game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.